Welcome everybody, my name is Bianca Maria Rinaldi. I am an associate professor at Politecnico di Torino, where I teach courses in landscape architecture design. I'm here today with Katsue Akamatsu. She's an associate professor in history of architecture at Kyoto Institute of Technology, where she teaches courses on urban history in Europe and landscape studies. She's connected from Kyoto today. Hi Katsue, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Bianca. Thank you for inviting me today. I'm glad for this opportunity, and it is a pleasure to see you again.
For me as well. We met long ago, actually, but it was only virtually. Katsue and I, we met in 2017. We were preparing together a proposal for a research project that we submitted under the framework of a call titled Joint Research Project with Top Universities. The call was sponsored by Politecnico di Torino and Compagnia di San Paolo and envisioned the participation on the project of two PhD candidates, one from Politecnico di Torino and one from Kyoto Institute of Technology, who were supposed to spend research periods at the Patronage University. So luckily our proposal was successful, and so our collaboration began. And it was a part of a broader form of cooperation between our two universities and the activities that were implemented within the Polito KIT Joint Research and Education Center. It was a lot of fun working on that project together. The topic of our research dealt with the role of urban landscapes and green open spaces, both public and private, in the construction of a local identity in 20th century Italy and Japan. The aim was to analyze a variety of phenomena, among them the reinterpretation of past traditions in garden design and urban planning, to explore how open space design was instrumental in strengthening geographical specificities and local cultures, and thus supporting discourses of national identity. As part of this joint project, I had the pleasure to host at Polito Namiko Araki. She was a PhD candidate at KIT, and she was part of this joint research project, and she spent a research stay periods here in Torino. And at Polito, we hosted several colleagues from the Kyoto Institute of Technology, and Katsue was so kind to host our PhD candidate who was involved in the project at that time, Marco Gazzoli, who spent a total of 18 months, I think, at Kyoto Institute of Technology, divided into three different periods. And that was a lovely experience for both of them, this exchange, although they met only very briefly in very short occasions. So Katsue and I, we share this interest in the role of open spaces and the construction of identity. And in Italy, this topic traverses the entire modern history since the unification of the country. It found a particularly powerful expression in the early 20th century with the recovery of the idea of the regular garden developed during the Renaissance. So all those gardens built around Florence and Rome, such as Villa Lante in Bagnaia or Villa d'Este in Tivoli, or the famous gardens designed by the Medicis scattered around the Tuscan hills. All of them, they came to represent a sort of specific Italian garden typology, which was quickly transformed into a national icon. More recently, this role of an emblem of an Italian urban landscape was played by Bosco Verticale, the famous building designed by Stefano Boeri in Milan, which blends architecture and the idea of an urban forest. But Katsue, could you please tell us more about this topic and its importance in Japan, and what is your research in this field?
Yes, thank you. Although there are historical and cultural differences between Italy and Japan, but it is fact that since the modern era, new types of square have been created. to show national identity also in Japan. And the urban landscape itself has undergone major changes. In Kyoto, a canal planned as a result of modern civil engineering work called the Lake Biwa Canal. It was incorporated into the villas and gardens around Nanzenji, creating a new naturalistic garden. And in this new reconstruction of Japanese tradition, it can be said to have a close relationship with the formation of national identity after the modern era. In recent years, I have also been interested in smaller open spaces. Last year, I conducted a survey of Kyoto's Kamigyo ward. Kamigyo, located in the north, was the site of Hideyoshi Castle in the 16th century, and the area was lined with the mansions of feudal lords. However, after the modern era, wooden buildings were densely built in connection with the prosperity of Nishijin textiles, and many alleys were formed between them. These alleys have been maintained and passed down by a small but deep community of residents, but they also pose a danger to disaster prevention. We are interested in the historical spatial appeal and also disaster safety and the formation of community identity, and conducted a survey last year to see if a 3D scanner could be utilized.
Yeah, I am particularly impressed by the way your research addressed also small open spaces that are on the threshold between private and public, the house and the city, and the crucial role they play both for the urban structure and the people inhabiting them. And also, I'm very much impressed by the tools that you are using for analyzing those spaces, like the 3D scanner. And I remember that you were using the first time that tool during our workshop in Cellamonte. It was the second part of another of our collaborative activities developed between our two universities, and it was the Drinkscape program that we started in 2018. And that was a joint effort of two departments at Politecnico di Torino, the Department of Architecture and Design and the Inter-University Department of Regional and Urban Studies and Planning, together with the Kyoto Design Lab at Kyoto Institute of Technology. The program envisioned two design workshops for graduate students, but could you please tell us more about the workshops, the topic that we addressed, and the role of production in shaping local cultural landscapes?
Yes, of course. The Drinkscape workshop literally challenged the current way of thinking about the history, present, and the future of the cultural landscapes shaped by beverage production. For specific studies and proposals, two production communities involved in beverage production were selected in Piedmont and Kyoto, respectively. The study site in Kyoto, in the Yubune district of Wazuka town, is one of the oldest tea-producing areas in Uji, with a long history of tea production and old tea factories. But now it is a marginal village with many vacant and abandoned houses, and its sustainability as a village is being questioned. The students were asked to solve the problem and make a proposal based on design thinking, which covers not only architecture but also product design and community design for the maintenance and succession of the village. In Yubune workshop, Japanese and Italian students first mixed and formed teams in three specialized fields. One is landscape and architecture and design. Each team mapped and analyzed the site based on their own observation of the scale and based on these observations, made a proposal to find and solve problems in the village. The landscape team observed and mapped the landscape components of the entire town of Wazka, including the village of Yubune, and they hypothesized their morphological transformations. Based on the results of the analysis of the history and structure of land use, the team examined new proposals for land use. The architecture team focused on the buildings in Yubune village, clarifying their layout, orientation, roofs, and design features, and the reasons for them, leading to a proposal for the use of village as a decentralized hotel. The design team presented a logo design for Yubune based on a survey of the routes leading to Yubune that needs the actual conditions of tourists and the nearby mountain bike park. In this way, the team analyzed and made proposals on a variety of scales.
And how about the second part of the workshop, the one that we had in Cellamonte here in Piedmont?
The train site chose Cellamonte in the province of Alexandria in the Piedmont region. It is far from the center of the region and preserves a mixed farming culture by grapes for wine and olives. The aftermath of the World Heritage Site was minimal, and the area was being considered for the development of a base to become a tourist destination. In Cellamonte, there are still buildings made of pietra da cantone, a sandstone native to the area, digging through the sandstone, and restaurants and winery that have opened door to the public are scattered throughout this fascinating region. In Cellamonte, the teams were given 3 assignments: pass, amphitheater, and village house, and they chose their teams according to their interests. Pass was designed for a view and a pathway, and the team were asked to create a place where people could walk around the hillside, see and be seen, and to come up with ideas for benches and chairs at the viewpoint. Amphitheater called for the utilization of former quarry that have been open pit mined and proposed the design of a road end parking lots that could be used the quarry as a node. The Village House project proposed the renovation of a vacant city-owned village house in the center of the village as a tourist information center. In contrast to the Yubune workshop, which focused on research and analyzed, Village House workshop was more of a design proposal workshop. The comprehensive design and planning process in which architecture and design students pools their knowledge, overcome language barriers, and was an extremely valuable, thought-provoking experience for students from both Turin and Kyoto.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I remember that for the students and also for us, the teaching staff, it was a great experience. Not only the students came from diverse course studies, because from Politecnico we had students coming from the landscape architecture program, for the landscape planning program, for the architecture program and the design program as well, but also the opportunity for them to work in mixed groups with students from the Kyoto Institute of Technology was a very enriching experience. And we were fascinated by the Valley of Oji, and when we focused our attention on that side, we were able to perceive the relevant cultural role that tea production has in Japan. We could really touch it. And it was not only perceivable by the way the camellia plants are shaping the landscape, but also through the variety of small activities like museums scattered all around the valley, or tea houses that offers different opportunities for tasting teas. And we also learned about the extent of tea production in shaping the local economy, and how young entrepreneurs are actually boosting the local economy, particularly in the part of the valley closer to Yubune, that, as you said, is a little bit more abandoned and still in need of revitalization compared to other parts of the valleys. So I remember that wonderful lunch that we had at a new cafe with a young couple that decided to establish there, and they cultivated the areas around the small restaurant, but also they had a different, they imagined a different sense of hospitality in which they were considering a form of tourism that actively engage tourists in cultivation. So they were offering tourists the experience of cultivating the land for a short period of time. But is there anything that impressed you in the way the construction of a cultural landscape based on wine production is dealt with in Italy, and actually in the part of Piedmont where you were called to analyze the area with the students?
I like wine, so it was very special experience to visit Monferrato. And anyway, the reason for selecting Monferrato and Uji as target site is the background of their registration as World Heritage Sites. Monferrato has already been registered and is being transformed into a tourist destination. The Uji area, on the other hand, is currently working on consensus building with the goal of being registered as a World Heritage Site. So we wanted to learn from Monferrato a lot. The effects of this privilege will be in the future, but I was very impressed that the Eco Museum in Infernotto and other site, because the winemakers, the government, and the community are all working together to think about the future of the region based on its cultural landscape. And so we could learn a lot from this. And also, I learned a lot from this workshop method. For example, I thought the setting up and designing viewpoints were fascinating exercise in visually analyzing the area and finding favorites. This is something I plan to use in future workshops in Japan.
Yeah, that's great. And also this idea of having these specific viewpoints here on the Monferrato Hills has become really a crucial aspect of how the landscape is being perceived by those traversing it. But another result of our joint workshop will be coming up, right? So we are working. You worked on an exhibition of the students' work, and also a publication in form of a catalog of the design proposals that were envisioned by students both from Politecnico and KIT. Is that right?
We are working on already. Students were prepared their preparation and presentation and materials. So please look forward.
We are looking forward to it, yes, of course. I think that both the joint projects involved the two at that time PhD candidates and now two doctors. Together with the joint workshops we organized were really important in implementing the cooperation between our two institutions, and also were crucial in increasing the mobility of research staff and students from Politecnico di Torino to Kyoto Institute of Technology, and from Kyoto Institute of Technology to Politecnico di Torino. how many students from KIT spent or are spending a research and learning period here in Torino? And do you have any idea what their experience is?
Yes, so far KIT had one doctoral student in 2017, one master's student in 2018, and two master's students also studied abroad online under Corona in 2020. And one master's student is still in residence now in Turin. And they have immersed themselves in Turin and conducted research on the Galleria as an open space in Turin and on brownfields as an industrial city Turin. They also participated in the aforementioned workshop and said they were able to learn about the diversity of open spaces and cultural landscapes, which cannot be learned only from Japanese urban spaces. And then all the students who studied at Politecnico di Torino fell in love with Turin and with Politecnico di Torino. The beautiful Valentino Castle by the river and the dormitory life were all unforgettable experiences for them. Also, I have visited Politecnico several times and have been allowed to enter the attic of the Valentino Castle. It was very nice experiences. I couldn't forget. But that was amazing experiences. Also, we had discussions in the gorgeous historical space and found the comfortable facilities to be wonderful. Of course, I was impressed by the fascinating, outstanding students and professors like Bianca.
Likewise, and we remember the wonderful facilities at the lab at Kyoto Institute of Technologies and all the publications you prepared and all the many different collaborations with other outstanding universities that you have. So we are looking forward to be back, and we are looking forward to have you here again. Meanwhile, thank you so much for your time and this conversation today. It was really a pleasure to see you again and chat with you, and I look forward to further cooperations between our two institutions and between us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for today. It was a great opportunity to reflect on our past and look to our future.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
And goodbye.
Goodbye.